Welcome to Backyard Cigars. Happy Father's Day. Feliz Dia de los Padres. For all you fathers out there, I commend you. I wish you the best. I wish your families the best. And I wish for you to enjoy your day. Whether or not you smoke a cigar, that's up to you. If you're smoking a nice cigar today, that'd be great. Something you like. I'm smoking a CAO Amazon Basin, aged about 3 years. I'm going to tell you, it's smoking lovely. But I wanted to say that what you're going to see next is basically me responding to a subscriber's question. Now, he asked why Cuban cigars always seem to have claro wrappers. Why do Cuban cigars never use Maduro wrappers? And I'm going to try to explain that in the segment that you're going to see next. So here you go. Thank you. Mika, thank you for asking such a thoughtful question, because it's not a boring question at all. It's actually a pretty good question. You see, Cuba does release certain Maduro cigars. I think in the recent past, they introduced a Cohiba Maduro that I actually reviewed. So if you'd like, I can send you that link as well on that Cohiba Maduro. And it was pretty good. The thing with the Maduro cigar is that throughout the course of history, dating back to the late 1800s, in the United States, it was a very popular thing to smoke a big, dark cigar. Now, big for them back then wasn't 60 ring gauge or anything like that. It was more like, a longer cigar, maybe in that wheelhouse of Churchill, Vitola, and ring gauge. But it was something that people smoked, especially on the Caribbean islands as well, dark cigars. And generally, it falls into this type of thinking. Back then, a lot of people thought, like today, that a darker cigar was stronger, and that's not necessarily the case. We know that. But also, as things shifted, things went more towards the claro wrapper, and you had a more natural wrapper. That became the fad. That became the go-to. And so the United States shifted away from the dark cigars that they were selling from Mexico, and some of the other dark cigars that were coming out of the Connecticut River, or the Connecticut Valley. So it was part of that. And then the other part of it is just time and energy, right? The way that the process for making a Maduro wrapper, it takes a lot longer than for a claro. So fermentation time is a lot longer for a Maduro wrapper. And basically that adds to the length of time. Now, if you know already Cuba's production issues, I mean, they're fighting tooth and nail to keep up with the demand, and they can't, and they probably never will. So for them to start doing Maduro wrappers on the regular would be costly, but also it would be time consuming. You see, there's also something about the process, the way that things are done in Cuba. So most cigar makers will, especially in Cuba, will remove leaves from the tobacco plant, starting from bottom to top. And they'll take a few breaks in between as they're getting towards the top, and then they'll start the fermentation process. A claro wrapper or natural wrapper could be ready within a year. But Maduro wrappers take a lot longer to ferment. And I know I said that already, but the process is different, because for a Maduro wrapper, in specific, if we're looking at Connecticut broadleaf, you're looking at stalk cut versus priming. Stalk cut, you're going with a machete, and you're going down towards dirt level, and it's a quick, violent cut, and then you let the plant basically wilt in the sun, and then you begin the fermentation process, which takes heat and so forth, and the time that I mentioned. With priming, which is the traditional way and the way they do it in Cuba, and you're going through the leaf grades and so forth, that to them is being more efficient, and it's something that they've always done it that way. So, not to say that Cuba hasn't released Maduros over the course of history, they have. But if you look at a lot of the old Cuban cigars, especially the vintage ones that I've purchased and I've smoked, they're all natural, maybe Colorado, which has like that reddish hue. But you're not going to find too many Maduros. It's just not a thing. And it wasn't a thing for a long time. It wasn't until the 2000s, early 2000s, that people started to get into the Maduros. And then everybody, by, let's just say 2010, everybody had a Maduro. Not the Cubans, but everybody else had one. And as popularity increased, well, eventually, as you know, Cohiba released the Maduro. But it's very rare to find. It's expensive. I think I paid, well, I didn't pay for it, but it was worth about $50, the one that I smoked and reviewed. So it's costly, but it's just not something that the Cuban government really sets out to do, although they have done it. To further answer your question about whether Maduros are a New World invention, no, not really. You can find they didn't call it Maduros back in the early 1900s or late 1800s, but the darker cigars or black cigars were how they referred to them. The other part to this whole Maduro versus natural wrapper is that the tobaccos, even the Cuban seed tobaccos in Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican Republic, well, they grow differently. And the way they ferment is different. So let's just say that it's easier to do that with some varieties of seed than others. And that's a part of it as well, you know, where certain tobaccos need to be of a certain strength and pliable in a certain way. In other words, it has to be a durable grade of part of the plant, because you're looking at a wrapper that's going to go through extensive fermentation, and it needs to be hardy. And I don't think that when you look at Cuban tobacco that you get that type of durability in their wrappers. Not to say that their wrappers are brittle or in any way, but they can be a little bit more delicate than, say, a Mexican San Andres. And that variety of seed and from the region that it's coming from just produces a different type of tobacco plant that makes it different to work with and more suitable for a Maduro wrapper. So I hope I answered your question in full. If I didn't, I do apologize. But yeah, it's definitely a lot that plays a role in what determines how we're gonna make this Maduro, or if it's even worth it to make this Maduro wrapper.